We can do whatever we want.
It's our show. We can do
Our
whatever
show.
you
We can
want.
cut it short. You can blame it on whoever, whatever you want. I don't have any evidence that Big Eva did this, but our show is
Yeah.
cut short.
I love it. Well, we were right, guys. We were right. It was going to be crazy. Everything we wanted to talk about last week in this show, we're not going to be able to because no one cares. Nothing else matters right now except one thing.
One thing. What's that thing?
Football season, right? Wasn't there a big game on?
Football season. The Jets. Let's talk about the Jets for a second. The Jets are hilarious because I've been a Jets fan for a while, but I stopped caring about football probably about 3-4 years ago. And I quite enjoy the hijinks that the Jets get into. And this is the best season ever because they score single digit points every game, if that. And they have their franchise. He's horrible. Their franchise coach, he's horrible. The quarterback is horrible. They're the worst team in the league by a mile. It is hilarious. So I'm enjoying
worse
that.
than Cleveland Browns.
Way worse. Wow. Not even a competition.
I'm so glad I don't watch football anymore. I stopped watching not because of the protests or anything like that, but back when the catch became so controversial and it started changing games and things, I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
It's stupid. Yeah, it became really stupid because this is what it became. I'll explain. This is it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Your favorite team does something good, and you don't want to get too excited because there could be any number of 10 penalties that happen on every play that they could pick. So you're like, is there any flags? Is there any flags on the field? That's what it turns into. You're so excited, and then you're like, is there any flags?
That's
boring,
so true.
Man.
And even the announcers were like that when I remember watching. No flags on the field. It's a touchdown.
Right. They're almost surprised that there's no flags on the field. And then the other thing is, when you think about really what you're watching, it's like a couple seconds of action, and then you talk about that couple seconds for a minute. Mm-hmm. And then another couple seconds of action. It's pretty boring when you think about it.
Yeah, I heard someone did a study once. They took out everything but the actual playing time, and it was like nothing. Games are 3 hours long. It was like a 9-minute game.
9 minutes. It was. Silly. I remember when I was into it though, and I'm not trying to make fun of anyone who likes it, but when I was into it, I was really into it.
Yeah, no, I was too. Fantasy and all stuff.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards. So that's what we're going to talk about today, football, man.
Yeah, no one else. Come on. You guys are sick and tired of talking about this election. It doesn't really matter anyways, right?
Listen, Jordan has a question before we get into this.
Okay.
He says, AD, what were you smoking when the Demon Eyes showed up the other night? And I intentionally left that out. And it's going to remain. No, I'm just kidding. I was smoking a cigar.
You were? Nice.
Yeah, one of the ones we got from the Fight Laugh Feast conference. It was actually pretty decent.
Good. Those are good.
It was pretty good.
Is he referencing one of your shows?
Yeah. So on the night of the election, I went outside because I normally go to bed at 10 o'clock pretty much every night. Yeah. And I stayed up till 1 o'clock, I think, something like that. And around midnight, I went outside to smoke a cigar. And it was a great night. It was quiet and it was cold. And it was one of those nights where it's so quiet, you don't hear anything. It's just no wind, nothing. And so I'm smoking whatever. I was recording a video to see if I could use it. And so all of a sudden I hear leaves rustling all around me, except for behind me, because that's where my house is. So there's in every direction I hear leaves all of a sudden. So I'm like, what in the world? So I grabbed my flashlight that I have, because when I go out to see the chickens, I need the flashlight. And I can find throughout the woods behind me no less than 4 pairs of glowing eyes looking back at me. And I could tell they were small, whatever they were. So I'm looking.
Joe
finally, right, the lizard people.
It's a sting observation.
Right. So, but anyway, one of them was a very large raccoon. So I'm sure all of them were. But it was just so weird how it was coordinated. They popped out of hiding. It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was trying to imply that I was seeing things.
Well, I should say welcome to Reformgelical, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Yes.
You guys are awesome, and it makes the show. Today, we pretty much are going to just talk about the election. And anything else you guys want to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat, and we will discuss it. I figured there's nothing else anyone really wants to talk about anyways. Trump just had a press conference. I don't know if anyone saw that. AD, did you see it?
No. What did he do?
Basically, he was just making his stand, making his case, and fighting back that he would win without all the corruption going on.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. I want to get your take, AD, on what you think. Do you think this is a fair election? Do you think it's completely rigged and all of this stuff? But first, I just want to say thank you for everyone who supports us on Patreon. you can go over to patreon.com/reformgelical and you can support us. It helps us stay on the air for now until we're censored and removed, because, man, social media has been censoring everyone lately. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then also AD has a show we talk about. For those of you who are new, welcome. AD has his show on YouTube and on the Fight Laugh Feast Network, and I have my show, How to Build a Tent, as well. Check those out, and you can follow AD, Real AD Robles, on Twitter, and me at How to Build a Tent on all the social media sites for now. All right, AD, what's your read on this election right now?
Well, so you're asking if it was a legitimate election?
I almost couldn't even get that out into the straight face.
Oh man, well, no, I mean, obviously not. I think what I find remarkable is not that there was cheating, because obviously there was going to be cheating. I don't think any sane person would have, because the thing is, you got to look at this as a long con. This has been a long con, right? So, number one, Democrats pretty much cheat all the time. We all well know that it's a big running joke that dead people have voted for every Democrat candidate, that's ever existed. So that's a given. But then we know the coronavirus hit, and instantly, you don't have to be like quite a prognosticator or very intelligent to see the long play there. I mean, everyone was immediately talking about it. Oh, it's election year, so the coronavirus thing's going to hang around forever, and they're going to do mail-in ballots, and they're going to figure out a way to scam the system that way, because obviously you can scam the system doing mail-in ballots. It doesn't. The fact that anyone was disputing that was just so preposterous. I mean, just like, you got to be out of your mind. Well, they aren't out of their mind. Of course, they knew they were going to do it, but they refuted it because that's what they needed to do. So you got this long con going on about this coronavirus and the mail-in ballots and all this kind of stuff. So none of that surprised me. What did surprise me, though, is how blatant it was. Yeah. How blatant it was. Like the whole situation with the two states, Michigan and Wisconsin, finding 100%, Biden votes at roughly the same time of day. Like it was like an hour apart that they did this. And just dumping them in there shamelessly. It was just like that. No attempt to hide it. No, like, because you would think, like, okay, let's just say you find the votes, and you, like, 80% of them or 90% of them, heck, even 95% of them went to Biden, but 5% of them went to Trump. Like, at least you could say, oh, it's cheating, but they're trying to cover their tracks a little bit, right? It would still be, but they didn't even do that. 100%. We found 130,000 new votes. All of them are for Biden, and they just threw it on there.
It happened twice in Michigan and Wisconsin.
Right.
And that's what exact thing.
That's what I'm saying. So it happened twice within an hour of each other. Like it wasn't that far apart. You know what I mean? When it happened.
Yeah.
Then there's all the other irregularities that people are identifying like crazy. And whenever you see them, copy them, screenshot them, because they're getting deleted from Twitter so fast.
Right.
They're getting deleted so fast. Then you've got the other thing of Republicans are doing great everywhere except for Trump. Somehow he's not doing great, even though everyone's excited about Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then there's ballots with just Joe Biden and nothing else checked on hundreds of thousands of votes. Didn't hear about that one?
No, I didn't hear about that one. Then there's the whole then there's the whole shenanigans with, calling states early and refusing to call states that were obviously for Trump, and the whole everything was working at the same time. There's so many moving targets. So to me, it wasn't cheating that was surprising. It was just the audacity and the shamelessness of it. And I said in my video today, Matt, I don't think you watched it. I said that what that tells me is they want you to know that they've done it.
You think so?
Not only did they cheat, but they want you to know that they cheated.
Yeah. I mean, it's so blatant. Either they want you to know, or they don't care if you know. It doesn't matter to them.
Right. That's what I think. They don't care. Yeah.
But they told us this was happening. Right. I just was going back and thinking about it from Hillary Clinton. She said, even if Biden loses, don't concede. I'm telling him not to concede because he'll eventually win. Well, what are we seeing? The first time ever, states, all of them, every single state that we're having issues with right now are controlled by Democrats. The elections are controlled by them. They pause their counting. Right. I've never heard of that in my life. But Hillary Clinton warned us about it months ago. Joe Biden makes his Freudian slip where he said we're putting together the biggest election fraud scheme ever. Right. And then Twitter and Facebook, they said, hey, if anyone calls the election the day of, we're going to censor them. And we're like, oh, that's kind of weird. What are you talking about? Like, we can't call the election the day of. That's when we figure it out. And so they were obviously in on it, right?
Everyone
was in on it.
Everyone. So Fox News, the whole thing, the media I'm seeing these weird advertisements from the New York Times with, it's the job of the media to call the election. According to who? Where's that in the Constitution? What?
Yeah.
So it's like, but everyone's, it's a big long play. It's a long con.
Yeah.
It's a long con. And by the way, I heard more than a few times from official sources, well, they gotta, let them stop counting, because you got to think about it. It's still Corona, but we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and it's mostly elderly people that are counting. And they're the prime target of the pandemic, by the way. Don't freak. It's a long con. And by the way, everything's involved with, all the pushback on conspiracy theories that you've been seeing. Well, if you don't believe that we found 130,000 votes and they were all for Biden, well, you might be a satanic conspiracy theorist, according to Big Eva.
Right, exactly. Right.
So it's like the whole game. It's all a game. It's all it's fantasy. Mm-hmm. It's a fantasy.
It is a fantasy, but it's weird because now they're not even trying to make it a fantasy anymore, because, again, like you said, it's so blatant. And when you think about things like these two cases that we're talking about, where they got these dumped votes that were exactly what Biden needed to be over the top at 4 a.m. or whatever it was.
Right.
It's not just one person doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team of people. It's the people that collected them and dumped them. It's the people that counted them. It's the people that entered them into the system. And then you double that, because it happened twice in the same time frame. There was a plan. It's a groups of people doing this. These aren't isolated incidents.
Sure.
Because remember, like, everyone was saying, oh, there's no fraud. It's not widespread. It's insignificant. And here we are with all of this going on. It is systemic. If there was anything that was systemic, if we could name anything that was systemic, a problem,
systemic.
This is it.
Yeah, man. Well, systemic means it's extra bad. I've learned that.
Yeah.
I've learned that from the woke church. So
this is a gospel issue to me. This is a gospel issue.
Yes, it is. It's a matter of loving your neighbor, which it actually is all of those things, interestingly enough.
It absolutely is. Have you heard Big Eva talk about it at all? I haven't really been online to see.
So this is interesting. Very little. I've heard very little talk, and it's so shameless that how people handle this issue. If you didn't already know who's who at this point, which most of us do, but if you didn't, how they address this is going to tell you who's who. Who's lining themselves up for the official state church job, and who's actually real. Because this is so blatant. This is so it's unbelievable. I kind of feel like a dope, to be honest, because I feel like I should have known that it would be this blatant, but I didn't.
Right.
I didn't expect it. I'll have to listen. I prognosticate a lot of things, but they got me on this one. They got me. But yeah, like if Big Eva either doesn't say anything about it, like your favorite person, or they just say, well, it's up to God's sovereignty. Well, of course it's up to God's sovereignty. Mm-hmm. Nebuchadnezzar coming in and killing a bunch of Israelites was part of God's sovereignty. Doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we need a little more than that.
And I get this one from Christians from time to time, because I've been tweeting about it a lot. This is actually really infuriating to me.
You've been mad, yeah.
I have been mad. Because it's, and we'll talk about it in a second, but I get this one a lot, that, hey, just trust God. God's in control. Or don't trust in chariots and horses. And yes, okay, that's true, but it doesn't mean don't ever use chariots and horses. Don't ever fight. Sure. Don't ever have pushback. It's just saying that's not our salvation.
Right. It's the political way of saying the John Piper, well,
yes.
I'd pray that my wife would be spared, but God would find another way. Like it's the same thing, except it's in the political realm.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's so crazy because we're talking about all of these different issues. I feel like we've said just right now what we've done in the first 10 minutes, said enough where these elections shouldn't be counted as they are. There should be some kind of remedy for them. And in the comments are numerous more things that are happening that are corruption.
Right. People have listed so many things that I honestly don't even know about. So it's either they're just new, or I don't have time to look into all of the fraud that's happened. I just don't. Yeah. But let me say something to Matt, because the thing is, I'm not actually asking for much. You're asking for some kind of not to not see it as legitimate. Let me just be straight. I'm actually a lot easier of a date here, a lot cheaper of a date. All I want is to someone just to start asking some questions, like someone in an official just ask, like, hey, that's a little shady. Can we look into that just a little bit? Like not even to make any accusations. I'm not looking for like to unvalidate the election. All I want is one person in a position of authority be like, that's weird.
Right.
Maybe we should think about this.
I know.
But think about this. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It's not on the. I've been watching all of the main news channels. Nothing. Not one thing.
Well, I listen to this. So listen to this. So I don't think anything. So people are talking about, oh, there's going to be lawsuits. Sure, I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits. But think about this. Think about it. It's not. Nothing's going to come of it. And here's why.
Okay.
Do you want to be the judge who says, "Yep, well, we're going to have to overturn the results of this election"? Like, who's going to want to do that? Who's gonna do that? Nobody's going to do that.
It's going to be really tough if they do, and I think that's one of the things that I really loved about Donald Trump coming out and starting calling states himself.
Yep.
And not leaving it to like even Fox News, who called Arizona the moment it closed, even though they hadn't closed Florida yet or called Florida yet. Like the weirdest things happening.
That was so transparent.
So transparent. This whole thing is transparent. Like I forgot if it's Georgia or North Carolina. They're just saying, we have like 30,000 votes left, and we're not going to count them till next week. We're not going to finish counting them. And then Pennsylvania's, we have like a Secretary's Day or something, so we're taking the day off. You know, the whole nation depends on it. We're going to take the day off.
That's my brother's county, by the way.
Is it really?
That's a socialist paradise. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Oh my gosh.
So, but the thing is, like, but the thing is, I'm not asking for much. Like, I just want someone to be like, this is like, we got to at least look into this. And right now, the only people that are doing that are, for the most part, like low-level media people that are not in the official channels, obviously, because all the official channels are in on it. But like, I just want someone. Like maybe I'll even settle for Tim Keller. Tim Keller, could you help us out here? Like, could you say like, yeah, this is probably not right. We should probably look into this.
His party is winning. His party is winning.
His team is winning, so it doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how many people are in on this. And I want to bring this up. I'm going to share my screen because this guy I really like, or I did like him until tonight because it seems really strange. Ooh. Andy McCarthy seems like a pretty solid guy. He's very smart. And usually has a lot of things to say, but check this out. This is the strangest thing to me. He's making fun of the president after his press conference this afternoon. 10 minutes, this was probably like 30 minutes ago, but 10 minutes ago, or was 10 minutes on this tweet, he's making this point and quoting Brett Baer that there's no proof of election fraud, but that doesn't prove election fraud. And then it's in those little star things. And then literally 7 minutes later, he says in every election there's fraud.
Hold on. Here's the divide. Brett Baer made the point that evidence of material election fraud is not compelling right now. Response is that media cooked books on polls, Russia collusion fraud, all true, but that doesn't prove election fraud. In every election, there's fraud. Every election. Thus, it's always possible again. It's true. The question is, did it make a difference? When asked that, Trump campaign says polls are fraudulent, Russia collusion. That doesn't do it.
Now, tell me this. Forget okay, to me, it's just, why would you say that and then 7 minutes later say, oh, yeah, there's fraud in every election? Right. But then you're making the point, like, yeah, there's not really any significant fraud.
Right.
Does he not see everything that we just mentioned and everything that is in our chat right now?
He sees it.
He sees it.
Yeah.
What is he doing, though? Because usually he's the voice of reason, and now he's gone. Something happened.
So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's technically accurate that, like, okay, so there's no evidence. You haven't proven fraud. Let's just say, okay, that's technically accurate, and that could be true that there is fraud in every election, even if you can't prove it. I guess that could be accurate. But what's the point of saying that?
Yeah, I guess in this kind of weird relative world, like what is fraud? Well, in Pennsylvania, when the law says you can't count votes after 8 p.m. on election day, and you're counting all these votes after election day,
right?
It seems kind of fraudulent to me.
This whole thing is like it's a big it's almost like they're trying to make you feel crazy. And here's Mary, they're gaslighting everyone. Yeah, that certainly seems to be the case. And I think let me tell you something else. This is a wild conspiracy theory, so just get ready for this. I think part of the blatantness of the cheating, dumping 100,000 votes or just barely over what they need to get by. all at once. It's almost like the message, like they're sending a message to people that are in positions of authority that we can do whatever we want.
Yep. Exactly
Anything.
right.
So get in line, because if you thought that it was inconvenient to wear a mask for 6 months, remember what we've unleashed on the streets of your city. That's nothing. We can do anything we want. And so people will get in line with that kind of stuff. Think about it. Think about like what the mob does, right? Think about what the mob does. They'll make an example. They'll do something bombastic, and then they expect everybody to get in line. You don't want to end up like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what's going on here, but that is an effect, because now everybody knows that the Democratic Party is going to cheat. No matter what, they'll do whatever it takes. Everybody knows that now.
Right.
And so I think people that are in positions to stand up to them will think twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what, Elston, this is why I think it's so important and why we do need to fight. And we can talk about that a little bit. I kind of talk about it on my show, How to Build a Tent, that comes out tomorrow, but we can talk about it here too, because I think it's good to kind of hash this stuff out. This is more than about Donald Trump right now, or even Joe Biden, because it's one thing to have cheaters that it's where it's kind of concealed in a private matter. At least in my mind, it's still bad. I'm not excusing it. We should prosecute it as harsh as we can. But just from a cultural perspective and a society and just the future, that's not as bad as what this is, because it is so blatant and so rampant and in so many different states. And there's so many different things going on. Yeah. If Trump doesn't win, or I shouldn't say that way. Let me say it this way. If either candidate doesn't win honestly from this, the whole democratic system of our country is gone. There's no point in voting anymore, because if it's true that all these cases that we're seeing are true, and it's tipped the election over the votes of the people, why should any of us vote anymore? Because they'll just cheat more next time. Obviously, there's going to be no recourse for them. They're not going to get in trouble. Do you agree with that?
I'll do you one better.
Okay.
If they've done this and they're willing to just put it out there that we've done this, because again, like I said, there's nothing you can do to convince me that putting it out there the way they did is not sending a message, right? Then this means that I have to say that why. Like, I don't think that voting and the democracy is over just now. That probably means it's been over for quite some time.
Yeah.
The fact that they're just in your face doing this tells me that they've done this many times, and now they just want you to know about it. You know what I mean? I think that they didn't. I feel like it's very possible that they didn't feel like they needed to cheat with Trump, and so they got caught with their pants down a little bit, and so they're like, "Well, that's never happening again." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's. Let me say this.
Okay.
Let me say that. Can I? You don't mind if I change the subject real quick?
No, go ahead.
It's not really changing the subject. So Tim here from Facebook, he says this. He says, the naked transparency of the collusion between the mainstream media, big tech, and the Democrat Party is so blatant that it's obvious they don't care if you know it. They're giving us all the middle finger in plain, he says finger, but you know what I mean, the finger in plain sight, because they aren't afraid of us. Their hubris is the result of our compliance and complacency. I completely agree. And let me say this. They've been testing us all year. They've been testing us all year, and nothing has scared them about their response, because here's the reality. We've allowed them to take the election the way they have by every one of us closing down our business because they told us to.
Yeah, right.
You understand?
Just like mask logic.
Everyone do the mask logic, right? Yeah. Exactly. We all wore the mask, and just because they told us to,
right? We
all shut down our businesses. We put our economic future at tremendous risk. Like, let's just face it. Like, it matters much more about like shutting down your entire economy for however long we did than it does who's the president of the United States. Like, that actually is much more extreme to do that for the cold. Yeah. Let's just be honest, for the flu cold. That's way more extreme to shut down entire sectors of your economy than cheating the election, right? And we did it. And to be honest, like, let's just face it, Trump participated in that.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't shut that down.
Right.
He still has Fauci as his right-hand man to this day.
Does he?
Or whatever.
I don't think he does.
He's fired? Fauci got fired?
Yeah. That's where, like a couple months ago, they put in the Stanford guy that called it right from the beginning.
Got
and
it.
that's
okay,
why he's on his little media tour all the time.
Okay. Well, then, okay, I'm wrong about that. Well, let's just face this then. He kept Fauci for way too long.
He did. Yeah,
Never, I'll
absolutely.
never forget when Fauci did the "we're not going to handshake anymore" thing. I was like, he should have been fired right then and there.
We're not going to handshake, but we still have sex. We just got to
Right.
like wrap our faces or
Right.
something.
Right. So Trump participated in some of this, and so like, we all kind of just gave them consent to do anything. Like if they can shut down entire sectors of our economy, then why? What? And we didn't put up a fight. Why would we put up a fight when they dump 130,000 votes in the wee hours of election morning? Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do about it? They're not scared.
Yeah, absolutely right. And
So compliance and complacency, that's the exact right. That we shut down our churches because they told us to. Because the flu's coming, guys. We've had the flu every year since the dawn of mankind. And then there's a new flu that it's extra scary, but not really. It actually kills just as many people. And it's like shut down your churches. And we were like, yes, sir. And the thing is, like, if you can do that, what are you going to do about it? They should have just said, you know what? There's no election this year. Biden's the president. What were we going to do? We're going to go to war?
Yeah.
You shut down your church and you're going to war.
Right. Yeah.
So
it really revealed how weak we are, because if we will concede on our foundation, then we're definitely going to concede on our elections.
So people will say to me, well, AD, what are you doing about it? Are you grabbing a rifle? I'm a YouTuber, guys. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. What to do? Because I get that question a lot. I'm sure you do too, right?
Right.
Not just in the condescending way that you're talking about it.
No, and I do want to answer, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, but first I want to say, Nathaniel, thank you so much. Super chat, I really appreciate it. You said there's a full message wouldn't fit in here, so I put it in the chat. I didn't see it. You can email me. I don't know if I'll get to it today because it's so long. It's kind of hard to read long messages.
Yeah.
But you guys can email me, matt@howtobuild10.com. I'll try to look at it. Just maybe try to do bullet points or something. I could probably try to read it on air, but I really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Okay, so do you want to go first on what you think should be done, or do you want me to give it a crack at it?
So let me say this, because this is mine is going to be an incomplete answer. So
okay,
for me, like the things that you can do, everyone has things to do that are at their level, right? Like so I'm a YouTuber. I run a small recruiting business, right? I have a family of 3 sons and a wife, right? And beyond that, and I have a church, right? Beyond that, I've got no authority, right? That's my sphere. So the things that I can do are simple. They're not very big right now because I'm not at a lot of levels. So I'm not grabbing a rifle. But the things that I can do are just refuse to consent in this nonsense anymore. I'm not gonna give the government any inch of authority that's not theirs anymore. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to do it unless it's to my advantage. So I said on my YouTube channel today, it might be to my advantage to pay, my sales tax, because otherwise I can't engage in commerce, right? So to my advantage, I'm going to have to do that. But any chance I get, like I'll never forget this. TurboTax asked me, did you buy any items outside of the state of Vermont so that we can tax it? Because you still owe taxes on that.
Oh my gosh.
Good luck with that. No.
Right. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, good luck finding out what I bought. The answer is no. Like the stuff like that. Take your kids out of freaking public school. How about that for another one you can do? Anyone can do that. If you don't consent to this system anymore, stop training your kids in the system. Take them out. Don't participate. Stop wearing the mask. Stop doing that kind of stuff. Because every time you wear the mask, you shut down your business when you're not supposed to. Make them take it to the mat. If that's what it's going to take, make them do it. Because here's what's going to happen. Biden's going to say, well, I've got a national mask mandate, and I'm not going to wear my mask. You think any cop is going to stop me? And if they do, what are they going to say?
Yeah.
I've got a medical exemption. Okay, sir, have a nice day. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
Don't vote for Biden with that kind of nonsense by shutting down your business, by following stupid rules that don't make any sense. Like that's the kind of stuff. Just refuse consent in all the areas that are in your purview. That's what I think that should be done. Now, what should be done for someone like Trump is much different. He's got a lot more authority, a lot more resources. What should be done with people that are owning multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar businesses is different. But like, everyone has to figure out how they're going to refuse consent to the fantasy system that we're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think this basically is our last stand as a country. And so when talking about and thinking through what we need to do, that is where I'm coming from. And I do love this country. I obviously am a Christian first. I want to glorify God in everything I do as the preeminence. But I'm not going to lie. I do love this country. I want it to go back to the way it was. I don't like where we've been. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that like I'm American first or anything like that, but I do love this country, and I do want to leave this country in a better place for my kids when they're in this situation. So that's where I'm going to be thinking about in this context is how do I glorify God and how do I use what God has given me and be a good steward of it, meaning my vote, my citizenship, and all that entails.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Let me say something else too,
Okay.
because you look at how the socialists have taken over, right? And the way that they've done it in many respects is kind of slowly. They've kind of taken the approach of being like leaven in a lump of dough.
Mm-hmm.
They take jobs that maybe a lot of other people wouldn't take, like, and these are like cultural jobs. Like they'll become an editor at Marvel Comics, and nobody wants that job because it pays horrible or whatever. And they'll do that, and then they'll start to insert woke messages and socialism into the comics. And like over time, if you do that in enough industries, over time you just take over. You know what I mean? You just every story that's told is a socialist story.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've done this over time, and they've done it from a very young age, because let's just face it, like most of us were taught some version of state worship in school, right? Some version of state worship, some version of socialism, some version of this whole narrative in school. And and so yeah, no problem. And so like we need to start thinking about our children, and how do we train our children in mass and our personal children in the church to be normal. You know what I mean? To operate in reality instead of the fantasy world. Because I don't want my kids growing up and trying to participate in this fantasy the way I did for so many years.
Right.
And so we got to start thinking about that kind of stuff. And that's going to require faithfulness. It's going to require a lot of foresight. It's going to require building stuff and all of that. But it's necessary, man. This is going to be a slow game to win things back. You're not going to do it overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Danny, I clicked on your comment. I didn't really mean to. I'm sorry. Put you on blast. Yes, this is live. Ask your questions. Apparently, he said he's got a problem with the guy on the left. And I don't know if it's like a mirror situation where it's me or you, but yeah, ask your questions. The only way I guarantee we're going to answer them is if you do a little super chat action. But so going back though,
if you want us to answer for sure, pay us and we'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the Jew. If you're talking to the Jew, you're definitely gonna have to pay us, buddy. So this is what I think we need to do, and this is how I've been thinking through this, because it's been a question I've been thinking about a lot, because just where we're at, our actions are going to most likely, no matter what we do, going to escalate the situation. Any kind of pushback is going to escalate it in some way. So we got to be really wise about it. And I think there's no one right answer, because part of what you said, AD, it's different for all of us in the resources and the talents we have, where we live, the local laws. All of those things need to go into the considerations of what actions we take.
Yeah.
Right now, the first three things that I think we should all be able to do, if you believe that this election is having fraudulent activity, like so many of us have just said, is one, call your local representatives and encourage them and tell them to get involved. Two, you can support the legal fund that's going to go challenge all of these lawsuits. And three, start encouraging on all the platforms Trump, his attorneys, and show up and support them. That's what the left does. They do it in a much more destructive way. They do it in a much more sinful, obnoxious way. But we could do that too, because these guys are politicians. Even when Trump says he's not a politician, he's a politician. And they're going to need political momentum to be able to win this. This isn't just a legal issue. It's a political issue as well. So that's what I would say you need to do now. Now, this is going to evolve and transform, and there's going to be different phases of this war. There's many battles in a war. And so that is what you do now, but it's not going to be what you do forever. There's going to be other things that you're going to need to do. And you're going to need more of a framework, because we don't know what the battles are, and we can't tell you what to do because we're not all the same. We don't all live in the same place. We don't all have the same resources. So for me, as I'm going through the next stages of whatever this is, and I'm not just talking about this election. I mean, this war has been going on for a while, let's be honest, guys. Is one, like I said before, we need to glorify God in everything we do. Two, Jesus gives the parable of considering the cost. So is this going to be winnable? Do you have the resources for whatever it is to achieve a victory, have a chance to it? Can you afford to lose? And those are the kind of the things. So do you have your talents? where are you and what position are you in? Are you able to achieve it? And do you have the resources to do it? And I think those are going to be helpful guidelines to decide on what we need to do next as individuals.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
I wonder this, Matt, because this is kind of where I'm at this point. Like,
Okay.
I wonder if, because you asked, is this a winnable fight, right? And I'm wondering if the fight's already lost. In other words, I'm not saying, we're not going to, there's no way to move forward. There is a way to move forward, but I'm just wondering if it's even worthwhile to fight on their terms, because clearly they wanted this to go to court. Clearly that's what they wanted. And you kind of feel like you have to do it. And I'm not telling anyone not to do it or not to donate to these funds, whatever. I'm not going to tell people not to do that, but I'm just saying like that's clearly what they wanted. And I just don't, if that's what they wanted, it just seems like, what would be the point? Like that's, you're still playing their fantasy game. That's kind of where I'm at. And so I'm saying, think about the future, but think about things in a different way, like not playing their game anymore.
I agree with that. But I would say this is it may be true that they want to go to the courts, but it could also be true because that's their only play they'd have. If it is true what we're seeing and everything, right? They weren't going to win the election from votes or by the Electoral College. And that's why we're seeing all this funny business right now. That's why some states, I think it's North Carolina, I might have said Georgia earlier, is waiting till next week to count their ballots. That's why they go on vacations and things like that. It's because they're not winning fair. There's no reason. Florida has more citizens than any of these states. Yeah, any of these states. And they were able to count all their votes in one night. So it's not like any legitimate real reasons why this shouldn't have worked. And so that I think was their only choice. I think that's their only way that they were going to win this, is to make it so controversial and where it would have to go to the courts. But here's the thing, is because they thought Trump was going to lose the first time around, Obama didn't appoint a whole bunch of judges. And he got to appoint a lot of these lower court judges as well. So, yeah, of course, I don't have hope in the Supreme Court. I don't have hope in these judges. They've betrayed us. They've made stupid decisions. But we have a chance.
Sure.
I mean, these are not left-wing judges that are going to be deciding it. We have somewhat, I think, 5-4-ish Supreme Court.
Right. And I'm not, and I would much prefer to have 4 more years of Trump playing the same game. Like that's way preferable to me. I'm not saying it isn't, because at least his worldview and he operates in some version of reality. Like, it's not perfect, but it's reality still. You can still decipher that it's real.
Yeah. Boys are boys and girls are girls in his worldview still.
Right. In his worldview, boys have penises, girls have vaginas, so, it's much more preferable. I'm just saying okay. Here's what I'll say. All that stuff is great, but eventually you have to come to the point where it's like, well, if this is really a fantasy, I'm not. Why would I participate anymore? You know what I mean? Like we're kind of already there. With my example is like coronavirus, right? Like yes, we still have to operate in the world where people are believing coronavirus, and we still have to adjust our plans according to what other people think. Like even like planning the trip to Nashville. There were certain things we had to do in order to get there. Right. I flew in an airplane. I had to wear the mask because it was on their airplane, and they wouldn't have let me on otherwise. So it's like I still have to do stuff like that, but any chance where I just don't operate in fantasy. So I have to step into fantasy to get on the plane. You know what I mean? But just stop playing the game eventually. I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
So this is Joshua Scott says, James White says, if it's not winnable, we'll get the first pick of bunks in the gulag. See, I actually don't think it's headed that way right away. I think like if you just refuse, government doesn't have any more power than you give it. They're going to start stacking us into trucks and trains. Like, okay, so then we leave. We get the heck out of here. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, we use our Second Amendment as it was intended. Like,
right,
it's not going to go right there because there's 300 million guns in the United States.
Right.
And
that's a big problem.
I know a lot of us will just do whatever the government says, but there's going to be a small fraction at least that is not going. I'm not going to a gulag.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. That's what I said today. Like on my channel, I said, look, people were saying, someone was trying to challenge me because I was saying well, if Biden gets elected, this is before the election. Biden gets elected, I'm just going to do the same thing I'm doing right now. Like I'm not going to throw a tantrum like the Democrats will. And someone said, no, you won't. This is the most important election ever. Like he's going to make you get the vaccine. And I'm like, I'd like to see him try. Yeah, right. I'm not taking the vaccine and my kids aren't taking it. Good luck with that. It's just that simple. It's not going to happen. I'm not consenting to that. So that's just it. It's all there is to it.
Yeah.
The answer is no. And we can do that. We can just say no. You want me to shut down my church? No.
Right.
Do what you have to do. Like we can just stop playing the game. You're going to operate in reality, not in fantasy world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, we just got to learn how to say no, and we'll learn how to stick together and fight. We can do it. I mean, the left does it all the time.
Perfect. That's perfect, Matt. We just have to learn how to just say no. That's it. No, we're not playing this game anymore. No, like this. Oh, people are like, oh no, Biden's going to tax the churches. No, he's not. How's he going to collect taxes from a church he can't find? Good luck with that, because that'll bring all real churches will go underground. I'm not paying you. You pay? No, that's God's money. You can't have it.
Right.
How are you going to find my church? You don't even know that I have a church. This is the thing. That's how we got to start thinking. Like, oh no, is he going to tax the churches? Yeah, good luck with that. He's going to tax all the official churches. Like, he'll tax Lehman's, mega church. He'll tax Matt Chandler's. He's not taxing my church.
Right.
Because that'll be the biggest house church movement of all time.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh no, this is not a church. This is not a church here, sir. We're just hanging out and singing songs.
Yeah. And we just brought wine and some bread.
So we're having a drinking party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly right. So you were saying though that this is a fantasy, and I would agree to some extent, but I don't think it's there yet. And that's why I think we need to fight now, because if Biden wins, I think that's a perfect way to say it. Next time will be a fantasy, because they might not get caught next time, but who's ever going to trust an election? Who's going to even want to turn out for an election when you're coming to vote, you put in your vote, and then we see these dumps of 134,000 votes? No one's going to do it anymore. So there is a fantasy element to it, just like you said, like the mask is a fantasy element, but the plane's still real. You still traveled. It isn't complete fantasy. And that's why I think it's worth fighting for right now, because we don't want to live in the fantasy. And our best shot of keeping it from continuing to become more and more of a fantasy is right now. I don't think in the next 4 years, I don't think in 20 years, it's going to be easier. It's going to be a lot harder. And now is the time.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like, because these are actually legitimate pushbacks here. So we got Mark here saying totalitarians won't accept that. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanic here saying, well, when they call it child abuse to not vaccinate and come to take your kids away, how do you just say no?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to look different for every person. But when somebody wants to take your kids away, you actually don't just have to hand them over. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that you can do. Now, I'm not telling you what you should do. I know what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like,
right.
And if it gets to that point, like, again, we'd be foolish to stay.
Yeah.
You have to figure out a way to get the heck out of here, whether you're a refugee to Mexico or what. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, baby.
Right. Like you don't have to stay. You don't have to let them have your kids, man. Like, This is the thing. I the other day on a video, I said that one of my signs for I got to get the heck out of Dodge is that they make homeschooling illegal, and they force you to send your kids to their schools.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a sign for me, because to me, what that's telling me is they actually think they own my kids.
Right.
Right. So I'd cross the Rio Grande to Mexico. That's how that would work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be crossing the border to get into Mexico. So it's like this is the thing. Like there are certain things you have to think about this ahead of time. Like, you don't want to be in a situation where you're having to make a split-second decision about what to do. Like, you should think about what you would do, Mechanic, if you have kids and the government decided, we're going to inject them with this, and that's all there is to it. And there's no saying no. You're going to inject these kids with this. And you don't even know what that is. Like, I'm not talking about vaccines in general. I'm talking about the coronavirus vaccine, where we obviously know it's not necessary, and it's
rushed, and who knows the side effects and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
even if we aren't anti-vaxxers, which I still wouldn't consider myself an anti-vaxxer, but I'm just a common sense kind of dude. So
no, definitely. So you all have to think about that. Like, if it's not the vaccine for you, and then you don't mind getting coronavirus. I'm not saying you need to mind getting the coronavirus vaccine. I'm just saying you need to think about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it's clearly most countries are less free than the United States, but also most countries are less resourced than the United States. Like, if you travel in a lot of Central American countries, a lot of times when you buy something, the shopkeeper will say, do you want a receipt or not? And what that means is, do you want to pay taxes or not? You know what I mean? Because they know they can get away with not paying taxes if they don't have a receipt. So it's like, yes, it's probably more totalitarian in some of these states. you can also get away with a lot more.
Right.
And one of the things you could probably get away with is not, injecting, your kids with whatever it is that's going to be in that vial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
I don't know what's in there.
And I want to tell this story. I think I might have talked about it before. I don't know, but it's really appropriate because this is an example that should encourage us that we are able to do these things and say no to the government and stand up to the government. If we do it from an intellectual perspective, with strategic perspective, and a Christian perspective, everything that Jesus tells us to do, count the cost and all those things. I was living in Hawaii for 2 years. A lot of people don't know this. There are parts of the island where I was living on Oahu called Waianae. And there's a section in the mountains of Waianae that they have declared themselves a sovereign nation. Mm-hmm. Like, not just leave me alone and don't bother me. They still have the old Hawaiian flag. They don't recognize any authority and legitimate government of the government of Hawaii. And they live on their own. And they don't want to be messed with, and no one does.
Yep.
And they have their section of land.
Yep.
The government doesn't bother them. I'm pretty sure they don't pay taxes because no one's going in there to talk to them. They have their own leader, government style, families, all those different things. It can be done.
This is done in cities. There's sections of New York and like in Los Angeles that cops don't go into because they have no authority there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the thing. Like, Antifa did this for a few weeks. Like this is not like this is not unheard of. Right, Chaz. But here's the thing. So and Mary asked a good question. So where will people flee to? Because the agenda is to control the whole world, and there'll be no place to defect to. It's valid. This is a valid point that she's bringing up here. But the thing is, like this is a question that everyone needs to be asking. So do you flee? Do you stay and fight? Well, it all depends on the details. I mean, if there's a state that just says, I'm not putting up with this, I'm not participating in this, and it's part of the United States, Texas or wherever. I don't think it's going to be Texas the way it's starting, but like wherever it is, then okay, I'll go there. You can't predict the future, but you do need to establish what your limits are ahead of time.
Yeah, and guys, like, I can totally see us legitimately needing to do that in the future with all of the totalitarian stuff and Biden winning, which means really Kamala is going to win. Which I have a theory about that, but we'll get into it some other time. That they wanted Kamala to win all along, and that's why Tulsi Gabbard got taken off as soon as she attacked her hard and all that stuff. But anyways, I would much rather fight this fight right now and keep Trump in office for another 4 years, to prolong this for another 4 years and maybe live another day. Maybe we can root out some more of this corruption and maybe get some more, less corrupt people in these states so that we have a better shot. I would much rather live this life of doing some sacrifice now and investing in the battle now so that we don't have to go live off the grid, because living off the grid is like romantic for a week. But anyone who camps for more than a couple weeks, that's a city boy like me, it gets really old really quick. I mean, I'll do it to save my kids and I'll save my family and live free, but I don't want to do it. I like where I live. Of course not. Yeah,
well, no, and I don't think that's what we have to do. I'm just saying, because this is the thing. Like, people are asking me about like hypotheticals, right? Yeah. And Mechanic here is saying, America's only lasted this long due to our Bill of Rights. But in my hypothetical, though, this is my point, Mechanic. In my hypothetical, they're also claiming they own my kids. So at that point, there's no longer a Bill of Rights, because if they think they own my kids, then what's the difference between free speech and freedom? There's no rights, right? Right. That's my point. So in my hypothetical, that's no longer valid. That's my point. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we're there. Like, I'm not saying you have to flee right now. I'm not fleeing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in New Hampshire, because the thing is, like, I think that we can refuse consent in the most liberal of places. You can refuse consent. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where I live, you can do it.
We're at a place where they don't believe in the Bill of Rights. They don't believe in the foundations of the government, but we're not in a place where they're imposing that on us yet.
Right. So not completely. Yeah.
Not completely. Yeah. I mean, they're creeping towards it, but we can still, for the most part, uphold our rights. We're in a position where we're able to do that still.
Right.
Okay. We needed Nathaniel. You gave us some more super chat money. I'm going to show this up because it's really encouraging to me, which reminds me of something else I wanted to say too. But hey, you guys, you just found us. You've been blessed by the Fight Laugh Feast Network. This is why we do it. And we're so thankful for you guys. Thankful for your support. Really appreciate it. Got your email. I'll read that in a second. But we also had someone else email us last week, and I'm glad I remembered this. Never heard of sphere sovereignty before.
Yeah.
And man, that was such a blessing, because if you just start realizing a biblical perspective and applying it to the world through sphere sovereignty, through the conversations we're having, you're going to be just seeing life in a whole new blessed way. And that just encourages me to hear that feedback from you guys. So thank you guys for sharing that feedback.
Lester says the red states have deep blue cities. There's nowhere to go if you want the internet. That's not true either. They have you should see. You ever been to Ethiopia, man? Every person has the internet on their phone. These people don't have enough money to eat, and they've got internet on their phone. Like everywhere has the internet. That's not true. But the point is though, like what the future that I'm talking about, where there is no Bill of Rights, they can take your kids because you won't give them their vaccine. Like I'm not so worried about internet if that's where we're at. You know what I mean? Like I want the internet. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in New Hampshire. I'm in a big blue state, right? Yeah. Like I'm not leaving. I'm refusing consent where I'm at. And I think nothing's going to happen.
Right.
But if something were to happen and they decided to say, well, we're going to try to take your kids, we're going to take you to court if you don't do the vaccine. That's a different situation. I'm not so worried about the internet in that situation.
Right. But let's be honest. I mean, we leverage the internet pretty well for the kingdom of God, if I do say so myself. We're able to do like a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's Nathaniel's email. Nathaniel says, hey, brother, I'm a worship pastor in Big Eva Acts 29 church that has gone woke. Over the past few months, I've discovered the Fight Laugh Feast Network and others and have finally felt like I wasn't going crazy. Welcome to the club. Long story short, I'm in New Jersey and I'm about to become a dad in 6 months. Congratulations. I desperately feel the need to find a church and community like you guys have.
Amen.
But all I've done since I was 17 was lead modern worship. And at a time I thought that was going to be my life, I feel trapped because my wife and I are ready to pack up and move now, but I have no idea what to do. I covet your prayers and any advice I would gladly appreciate it. What do you say about that?
So let me make sure I understand the situation because I was reading one of the comments here.
Okay.
So he's a worship pastor.
Right.
At a Big Eva-ish church.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to find a new church, but all he's ever done is be a worship pastor. And so he's worried about what to do financially and how to survive.
Correct. And he's ready to pack up and move. He's looking for a church basically that thinks like us.
Thinks like us, but he's a modern worship pastor. That's the dilemma.
And see, AD and I probably have a different perspective on this. I'm not really anti-modern worship. I don't know how AD feels about that. But
it's not my favorite, but I'm not. Yeah. I wouldn't call myself anti.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man.
And we're probably in the same boat then.
Listen, man. Listen. Here's what I'll say about this. Somebody asked me something similar the other day, and what I told them was like, finding a church that has people that have a backbone, people that are not going to, cave to every social pressure, that are going to not think that you're nuts when you start to talk about, okay, what do I do if they try to take my kids kind of thing? Like what I've just been talking about. Like, they're not going to be like, well, why don't you just get the vaccine? Like, you just trust the government. Like churches that think in those terms, that have backbone. That's going to
put your mask on when you worship, please.
Right. In between bites too. So we're going to have in between bites. I want you to work. So anyway, that's going to be invaluable for the future. Invaluable. Like that's worth so much. That's worth sacrificing for. I'm just the comment I was reading actually is relevant here. So let me just read this.
Okay.
Somebody said, I can't homeschool, so I spend $1,100 a month on a Christian school tuition, and I drive a 20-year-old vehicle, and it's worth every penny. Yeah. So this person saying, look, I'm going without things. I have a car that's 20 years old. I probably goes without other things as well, just so that he can send his child to an actual school, right? That's a lot of money. $1,100 a month. That's a lot of money, right?
That's rent for a lot of places.
Yeah, right. So this is the kind of thing, like to him, it's worth it to not send his kid to the government school, to sacrifice in many ways. So to me, it's like, okay, what should you do? You should definitely pray, and I would do whatever I could to figure out whatever way I could make money and be at a church that's good. I would do whatever I could.
Yeah.
I think you probably could find a church that was solid, that wanted to do contemporary worship. So you could probably find something in your field. But if you couldn't, it would definitely still be worth it to find something else or figure some other way to make money and be at a good church, because that's going to be invaluable in the future. Having a local body of believers that you can count on, that are not going to turn you into the authorities, that are not, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't really have the same exact story, but I was in a place where I was looking for a church that I could rely on, be that just for over this last year. I'm a Baptist, AD is a Presby. I looked up the CREC church like Cal is suggesting in the comments, And I ended up going to a Presbyterian church as a Baptist, and I am so happy there. Yeah, 80s is so stoked about it.
I'm in
But I'm
a
happy
Baptist
there.
church.
It's weird too because it's a liturgical church. I've never gone to one like that before.
Oh, wow.
It's it's a workout for me. It's hard because my kids are there and it's liturgical, so it's not like there's loud music where the kids are drowned out, so you have to really like discipline them and stuff. It's hard, but it's good, and I've been so blessed there. And just knowing that I have a pastor that has my worldview,
Amen,
and that has my back, and is faithfully teaching God's word. And when he comes to me with something, I can respect it, even if it's a critique, because I know his foundation and I trust him. It's not going to be, I don't like your tone. What you're saying is good, but I just don't like your tone. He doesn't do that with me. He watches our content and he will have feedback for me, and I love it. It's worth it. It's like worth driving that 20-year-old car and paying $1,100 a month, whatever that sacrifice looks like in your context.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I think people are kind of reading this, what I'm saying with like doom and gloom. Like I'm not at the place where I feel like you need to flee. Like
I'm the pre-mill guy. He's the post-mill guy.
Right. Right. I'm staying where I'm at. I'm happy in New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire is a great opportunity for socialism. I feel like New Hampshire could be a place where socialism can be fought back, like the starting point in the Northeast. Mm-hmm. New Hampshire's in a great position, I think. It's not a big, it's kind of similar to like Idaho in a sense that it's not a lot of people and there's small towns and you could do some damage if you knew what you were doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to figure it out. Right. Mm-hmm. So like I'm staying, I'm sticking around, you know what I mean? But like everyone has to come up with their own priorities. And I think that to the person who asked this question, like, it sounds to me, the way you've asked this question, it seems like there's some severity, like you're serious, like this is a solemn question that you're asking. Mm-hmm. And so that tells me that you think this is important. Like this is important to you. And my advice is, if this is important to you, like, finding a situation that you can count on these people, then you need to do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. Like whatever, if you have to learn another skills, Andrew here said Skillshare.com, my dude. Like he's basically saying like, learn to code in a nice way. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. But like, but there's gotta be something, and maybe we can talk more about this. I don't know your situation. All I know about you is what you told us, but you got to do what you got to do. Like the church situation, man, like, this is how you'd refuse consent with the system, right? You figure out a situation where if everything were to go to hell in a handbasket, you have enough people in your local body that you guys would be fine, man. You could take care of each other. You guys could work something out. And maybe a farmer, maybe a guy who can help work on your car, whatever your situation is, whatever your context is, whatever you need. Yeah. Like I think local communities are going to become much more important, especially for Christians, if they don't want to consent with this system. Mm-hmm. Because the system's going to insist that you sign the document that says LGBT people are the greatest thing since sliced bread. The system's going to demand that you do certain things if you want to participate. One of those things is they're going to demand that you inject your kid with this experimental, coronavirus vaccine if you want to come to our meetings and our schools. So just say no. But in order to say no, you have to have planned ahead of time. And you have to have a system, a community that's going to help you out. Because not everyone can just say no and pull their kids out of school and be fine financially. Even if that's what you have to do, it's going to be difficult, especially if you don't have a community around you to help you out.
Yeah, and solid godly men too.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think people always say, well, I can't afford a private school. I can't afford a homeschool because my wife needs to work. I honestly wonder, like if you ask some people, ask your church, man, like I prayed about it. I don't think this is right for my kids to send them to this government school where they're going to learn about how to be a transsexual. So I don't have the money. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I, in your local community, there's going to be someone that can help you out. There's going to be ways to do that, man. There's going to be ways to get it done. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah, even financially, or I know people are interested in co-ops and starting homeschool systems where you're not alone. Like, you just got to think outside of the box.
Yes, that's the thing. When you're thinking about refusing consent, you also got to stop thinking in the way that gives consent.
Right.
So instead of thinking of, well, what does a normal school look like? What does a normal situation look like? And start thinking about, well, reality is we've taught our kids for millennium and schools are new. So like, clearly there's ways to do this. How do I do this? You know what I mean? Like, and it's hard because ever since I was a boy, I've been programmed to think in certain categories in certain ways, and I'm not immune to this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not immune to this.
And there's two things I'll say about homeschooling, and I don't know really how we got off this homeschooling thing, but from that comment. Two things that really helped me about homeschooling is, one is we have been teaching our kids since the day they were born.
That's right, man.
We have the experience already, and you are been teaching your kid regardless if you put them in public school for years. You're just choosing to stop and giving them to someone else. And the second thing that was really helpful for me is you're not replicating the school system. You're not trying to figure out how you can compensate and do exactly like what the public school system does. You're not teaching them 8 hours a day because you're going to do it better than them. You don't need to copy the failed system. You don't have to spend 8 hours. You can spend like 3 hours, and then they can go outside and enjoy nature and enjoy God's creation. And statistically, they come out far more educated than any public school in X amount more time. So don't try to copy it. Yeah.
The system, the whole public school program is garbage. Don't try to copy it because you're just trying to copy garbage. Mm-hmm. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like you gotta, and that's what, it kind of overwhelms people. Like, man, how am I going to learn chemistry, and how am I going to learn this and that? It's like, well, you actually don't, because your kid is going to be interested in certain things, and you just, you're there along with them. They're going to learn it. They can do this kind of stuff on their own, man. Mm-hmm. And you can learn right along with them. You don't need to go to school for, a master's degree to teach, how to read. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do that. No one ever did that before. So like, and that's the thing, like it overwhelms people. It even overwhelms me, my wife and stuff. But then we start thinking, well, yeah, but we're actually not trying to replicate the experience we had. That's not what we're trying to do. That's
and you don't want to. It was terrible.
That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. So, anyway, the point is though, like that's the kind of stuff. Because look, Matt, I'm with you, man. I hope that this gets fought in court. I hope that Trump ends up the president for 4 more years. Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting it, but I hope it happens. Yeah. But I'm looking at beyond that, right? Like how do we move forward with this phony baloney system in a faithful way? And I think that it's got to be just deprogramming our minds from this fake system,
right?
Because if they can take the election the way that they've done it, they can do anything that they want to do, and nobody's what's gonna happen? Nothing. That's what's gonna happen.
Absolutely right. And this is what I think we need to do. And again, I've been talking with a lot of men about this. Is another thing that we need to deconstruct. The presidency is not the most important political office in our lives. It's the local elections. It's the sheriffs. And even from a strategic perspective, when we're worried about this universal mask mandate and you're worried about getting the vaccine, if you have the sheriff, your local sheriff on your side, well, you're going to have a lot more reinforcements.
That's right.
And they're going to have to call in the Fed on you if they want to really enforce anything, most likely. They're not going to just willingly do that to everybody. So if we could be strategic, and if Biden wins and he starts implementing these policies via Kamala Harris, but we go to local elections and we prop up faithful Christian men that have the worldview that we have, and we put them in the mayor's office, they control the police. We put them in the sheriff's office, they control the sheriffs. Yeah. What are they going to be able to do to us?
We got to strike the fear of God in these people. Because here's the thing: you think about the Bible, and then think about like examples in history of people defying the government. The government has the authority to do anything they want to you, but yet they fear doing it because of what the people will say. And sometimes they still do the wicked thing. So, like in other words, I think about Herod, right? Mm-hmm. Like for a while, he put up with John the Baptist. He didn't like him, but at the same time, he kind of was scared of him because like he was just kind of like, he didn't care what Herod said. He's like, you can't have your brother's wife. Like that kind of put fear in him, but he did eventually arrest him, and eventually he got his head, whatever. But he was still, even as he got his head, he was still scared. Right. So that fear comes from somewhere. John the Baptist didn't have any power, but there was still some fear there. And think about like John MacArthur, right? Yeah. 2 Johns. Governor Newsom's like, well, we might have to bring you into prison. And John MacArthur was like, okay.
Yeah. Always wanted to start a prison ministry.
Right. I'm not scared. Like, okay, so I'll preach the gospel in prison. And what happened? Nothing happened. So he's like, what are you going to do about it? John MacArthur's just he's an old elderly man, and he faced down the governor of California. The governor's like, well, you better shut down your church. And he's like, no. Yeah. And it's like, so how did that happen? How did that work? Well, it's because the Fed could do whatever they want. He could have put him in prison, but he feared him. He feared someone that was willing to just say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so, listen, I'm not saying that this is going to be peaches and cream, like if you defy the government, but like if we had the sheriff in our town and they said, well, we're going to come in, we're going to do the mandated vaccine. And the sheriff's like, no, you're not coming in here. We're going to post our guys at this place, and this place. So good luck. Mm-hmm. And of course they could come in with the nuke and nuke us all to Kingdom Come. But the thing is that they fear that because they realize that if they do that, that's a line that could lead to them losing their heads. You know what I mean? Like you can put fear in the government by refusing consent. If enough people do it, they got nothing.
Well, I mean, just case in point, our very own Gabe Wrench. He got arrested, but he just got arrested and then he got out on bail. And then they came back the next week, and nothing happened.
Nothing. What are you going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it? So, you may get arrested for the day. Man. Is that going to destroy your life? Are you going to be mentally scarred forever? No. And then you're going to win, and then you're going to have victories. Like, that's the mentality we need to have.
Yeah, man. No, I get it, man. We're kind of running a little late here, but the thing is, like there's always no, I don't have to go. But I'm just saying, like, there's always an option, right? Like we're trained to think, well, then we're going to be put in a place where there's no option, and we're trained to think that it's going to turn into Pol Pot overnight. And the thing is, like, it very well could. I'm not saying it couldn't. Of course, people get persecuted all the time,
right?
But we're at the point right now, like, where I think it's very clear that our official institutions, the newspapers, the big tech, the official politicians, pretty much in lockstep. They're all pretty much in lockstep. So that's all gone. Like I don't think there's any winning that kind of stuff. There is winning local stuff and reality. It's like they're just like refusing to do it. Like, do you want a receipt or do you not want a receipt? We still have that choice, right?
Yeah.
We always have that choice. And so I'm just saying, don't be wringing your hands full of anxiety. Just commit today that you're not going to participate in the nonsense and the fantasy. Yeah. You're gonna operate in reality. And anytime you have to join the fantasy, just do it for as little as possible. But operate in reality. Right. Figure out ahead of time what you're willing to put up with and what you're not, and strategize for the future, because we're going to need that kind of strategic thinking a lot more in the future than we have in the past.
Absolutely. And we need to cast out fear.
Amen.
Perfect love casts out fear. We were not given a spirit of fear, but a power and a sound mind. And it's in fact the opposite. We should be, when we are facing these trials, what does it say? Count it all joy when we meet trials. We are counting it as fear when we're thinking about meeting trials. But no, we're supposed to be joyful. And the beautiful thing, this is my good old Calvary Chapel days, Chuck Smith says, God's commandments are his enablements. If he has called us to be joyful in these trials, then through the Holy Spirit, we are able to do it. So we need to be prayerfully grounded in his word and praying for him to give us that joy, and then be bold about it. That's how we make change. Yeah,
let me just answer Nathan one more time, since he was so gracious with the super chats.
Yeah,
thank you for that. What he said was, what if the only church who thinks like us is over 45 minutes away? Is it worth driving that far when it'll be very difficult to build genuine community due to the distance? We have basic Baptist theology, church who has decent theology, but absolutely no backbone. I go to Nathan. I can't tell you if it's worth it for you, but I go to a church right now that's an hour away for this exact reason. Now we're probably going to end up at a church in town that the pastor that's a good church in town pretty soon. But for right now, it's totally worth it. It's a little bit difficult to build more community, but it's not that far, and it's possible. You just have to be willing to put up with a little bit of stuff, especially if you have kids. It's hard to do it, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion. But anyway, there you go.
And
that wasn't wrong. Nathan Keene and Nathan Seal. Sorry about that.
Oh my gosh, all these tricks. You guys are the same names. And I would say too, for whatever Nathan this was, is that try it out and just go and drive there. And if you feel connected to the church and you want that deeper community, then move.
There you go.
Then move. Yeah. Okay, we'll just leave it there because we're already over. There's another question I wanted to hit, but
do it, hit it.
Okay. This is a good one, and it's going to get us in trouble, I think. He's a conservative dude in a relationship with a woman who is a Democrat.
No, I saw this. I wasn't going to answer this one, but go
You
for
weren't?
it. It's a hard question to answer. I don't know anything
No, I
about
think it's easy.
the woman.
I think it's totally easy. It's everything you've been saying to do.
What do you mean?
I think. I don't know. This is what I would think then, since I think it's easier than AD does.
Yeah, why don't you? And I'll tell you why I don't think it's quite as easy.
And then, so I'll have my answer, and then you have your squish answer. Well, this is what you need to do, because I think both of us are saying that as a Christian, you shouldn't be a Democrat. That's sinful.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she needs to go through church discipline. And the first step of that is for you to talk to her and say, hey, these are the reasons why it's sinful to be a Democrat. Do you understand this? Do you see from a biblical perspective that it's sinful to support murdering children and supporting child murder? Do you see that it's sinful to have theft and use the government to overtax? Do you see that this is against God's law, and that when they boo God and they take him out of the platform, that's the antithesis of what you're claiming to represent? And depending on how that conversation goes, you should probably know that's probably not the relationship for you, or she's going to repent and you've saved her.
So, okay. So Matt, my answer is basically the same as yours. And the reason why I said it was hard is because it's not a yes or no. Because yes or no, like, okay, we need to know more information, right? Because I'll give you this right now. If she was pro-choice, like an abortion supporter, then it's a quick no. Right. Absolutely not. Don't be in a relationship. That you don't. No, definitely not. But let's just say she's one of these, like, oh, the policies are good, so I vote for in spite of abortion. Then I think, you need to have conversations, man. Like, you're not in a situation where like that's just an easy, like, keep going forward, I love her kind of thing. Right. It's a converation, and like you said, the first step of church discipline, you need to figure that stuff out.
Right. And you can get her a job at the LLC too.
Right. But actually, to be honest, the way that conversation goes, it's going to be a window into how your future goes. Right. Your future disagreements and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy conversation, but like, that's a conversation that is necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And here's the thing, my dude, you're going to be, if you're pursuing this relationship, you guys are going to get married. You're going to be the head of the house, and you're going to be responsible for her, and you're going to have to lead her. Right. And that includes in political decisions too. You are going to be responsible for how she votes. Right.
Yeah. So now, Matt, we landed in the same place. I just didn't characterize that as an easy answer.
I'm
not squishing, man. Come on.
No, you're not. You're not squishing this. You're not squishing this.
But no, it's not a yes or no, but you got to have that. That's a conversation that needs to happen and needs to get straightened out quick.
Yeah. And most likely, if that's like the issue, there's other issues too where you guys aren't seeing eye to eye on. I'm just going to bet on that one for sure. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this crazy day. I'm glad we got to talk more than just this election. I really thought that was the only thing we were going to talk about.
That was not bad, yeah.
That was a pretty good show. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/reformgelical. You can subscribe. It comes out on podcast Friday sometime. And you can find us on YouTube and live streaming, of course, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll talk to you next week.
Wait, read Tony's comment.
Okay. Oh, goodness. All right, I'm just going to put it up. And this is daring because he's a patriarchist. If she's an actual Democrat and, quote, in a relationship means not married, run far and fast and really, really far. Your marriage will be a disaster if you stay.
Okay. That's what I mean. Like, an actual Democrat. Like, we need to get to the bottom of this.
But I wouldn't necessarily run because for some reason, maybe she's just always been Democrat, never really thought about it, not political.
Right.
Have the conversation. And then if she's like, no, I'm Democrat and you're a racist, even though you're dating me.
You could still, I've heard this. You could still be, we're going so long, but I've heard that you could be married to a black woman as a white man and still be racist.
Yeah. And I've also heard you can adopt 2 black children going for the Supreme Court and be racist as well.
No, but you're right though. No, Tony's right about this because even like you're right. Like it's a difference between, well, I just grew up that way. I was always taught that way. But I don't really believe anything that they believe. Mm-hmm. There's people running around like that. But if you see like a true believer, you got to get to the bottom of that. You know what I mean?
Right. If she's wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, just don't even have the conversation. Just turn around and go.
Oh no.
All right, guys. Thank you everyone for staying on all the way to the end. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching live. We'll talk to you next week. God bless.
God bless.